that chapter of our lives where we were navigating through loss and losing people that we really cared about and were an integral part of our family while Ron was incarcerated. It was devastating, but we had to pick up the pieces. We had to keep moving. And so we need to talk about it.
How do you stop the cycles of self-destruction? Because this is an easy door that you could walk through, and you can become so destructive that you not only destroy everything that you built while incarcerated, all the planning you've set up. In one moment's time, when you lose a loved one, you can throw it all away. Welcome to Tyro TV. I'm Ron Tijerina.
And I'm Cathy Tijerina.
And today we want to talk to you about the subject when you lose a loved one while incarcerated.
As we've been traveling around the United States and speaking to incarcerated men and women, one of the common themes that we've been hearing is loss. And how do you navigate through the grief and the regret of losing a loved one while you're incarcerated? So today we're going to talk about what does that look like? When someone passes away and you're still incarcerated, what's the process that you're going to go through? Why is it important to actually address it and really look at it for what it is? And give you some practical tips on how do you get from a place of being overcome by grief and regret and even anger, and how do you move past that to a place of healing while you're still incarcerated?
And this is going to be a tough subject to talk about. While I was incarcerated, I experienced the death of a loved one while doing time. But, as I look at that, we want to talk about how did I overcome that? How did I deal with that in a healthy way? And we hope that today's episode can bring you some help, can bring you some hope that, you can get through this. There's some, one of the greatest fears a man has while he's incarcerated, or a woman has while they're incarcerated, is losing a loved one through this experience. And even the feeling of guilt can overwhelm someone because they're not there to help them.
We have seen people lose loved ones inside prison, never recover from it. And then as they transition back into society, they are so hopeless that they're unable to find their bearings and get their feet on the ground and become successful. So we really want to give you some tips and tools today. I know while Ron was incarcerated, three of the closest people that he lost a sister-in-law, which was his brother's wife.
Mm-hmm.
And we were so close. We were best friends, hung out all the time. Totally unexpected illness. And then suddenly she passed away. Your grandma.
My grandmother, who came to visit me while I was incarcerated, and love her dearly for that. And she lived in another state, and she passed away.
And then finally, the other really close person that you lost while you were in prison was your cousin.
Losing my cousin, that was devastating. But I wasn't alone. And that's what the encouragement we want to bring to you today as we discuss this. So as we dive deep into this subject, and please, it's a sensitive subject, we hope that it brings you hope, it brings you peace, and can bring you some answers to maybe some of the questions you've had.
So stay tuned. When we come back, we're going to talk more about how to navigate through the loss of a loved one while you're incarcerated. We'll be right back.
Dear son, it's been hard these last few years, watching you grow up without me in the picture. Never taking the time to find out how you were or what was going on in your life. You're just a boy, I thought. You don't need me. I didn't need my dad. He was never around, I told myself. But I was wrong, son. I'm supposed to be a grown man. I was selfish. I was stupid. I was thinking of me, not you. If I could go back, son, and change things, I would. It's taken me all this time being selfish to finally grow up and realize I need to be a responsible man. That's what I finally learned, not from prison, but the Tyro program. It's all about becoming a better, stronger man. Wish I would have gotten it sooner. Everything looks different to me now. I'm a changed person. I know I need to be there for you now. It's not about me anymore. It's not about being cool. It's not about who I run with. It's about Mom. It's about you. It's about being a better man, learning something new in my life. It's about being a Tyro, a man worth following. I'm your dad. You're my son, and I love you. I am a Tyro. I'm a Tyro. Dad.
If you think you have what it takes to be a Tyro or just want to know more, contact your local Ridge Project facilitator or your caseworker.
Welcome back to Tyro TV. Today we're talking about when you lose a loved one while incarcerated, and the impact of that.
It is so devastating, and we absolutely do not want to minimize the effect and the overwhelming grief and despair and hopelessness that can come with loss. When you lose a loved one, whether you're by their side or not by their side, it is devastating. It's navigating through the thought and the idea of continuing on to live without that person in your life, and it can become suffocating. And so that's why we really want to talk about it, because it will infect your own ability to succeed, but also every relationship around you if you don't figure out how to navigate through the loss and the grief and get to the other side in a healthy way.
When we talk about getting to the other side in a healthy way, this is a process. And it could take months, it could take years. But when we choose not to look at it, when we choose not to be real about it, and we stay in denial that it's really happening, especially if you're incarcerated and you lose your mom, you lose your dad, which has been a common theme as we've been traveling and speaking to men across the United States in all these prisons where they lost their parents. Men who have done 30 years, who are doing 30 years or more years, and they're losing siblings. They're losing those people that are closest to them. And what is it that we're talking about? How do you come through that healed? How do you come through that stronger? How do you come through that okay?
So I really want to, Ron, I really think that we should talk about the impact in particular when we lost your sister-in-law. Because when Gloria passed away, it was devastating. So she got an illness, and we knew that she had it, but we thought that it was managed, and then she died. And she wasn't even 30 years old. Ron was in prison, and I was devastated on the outside as I was having to walk through this loss without being able to have Ron next to me, without, crying on his shoulder, without having him there present, as we went through all of the formality of our formal farewells to her, but then navigating through the day-to-day without her there. And so I know for me, I'm struggling, our kids are struggling, and it was really a difficult season for everyone involved.
And for being inside, when you lose a loved one, if you don't have no attachment to the situation because you've been away so long, you could be almost numb to it because it doesn't affect you, because why? You're not in the relationship you used to have.
And it doesn't seem real.
It doesn't seem
right.
real. And my sister-in-law died of lupus, and it was devastating to the family. And here's the thing about it, because when it happened, her husband, my brother, was also incarcerated. And he did just a short time, but just that little window of 6 months, his wife passed away. And it was devastating to him. The guilt, the remorse, the lamenting, overwhelming for him. And when I meet men in prison now and today and they're losing loved ones, how do you support them? How do you gather around somebody or gather people around to show them and tell them, I know what you're going through? Because you don't know what to say. There's no manual for this, because this is one of the greatest fear every man and woman has while they're incarcerated, losing a loved one, because they can't be there and they'll blame themselves that it happened.
So as we're navigating through the loss of Gloria on the outside, Ron and his brother are on the inside in separate, different institutions, but trying to find their feet. Ron trying to really comprehend and really understand, wow, this is real. And Rudy, who was just gone for those 6 months when he left, I mean, she had lupus, but it was under control. She was doing okay. And then to experience that devastating loss while he was away. So we're all suffering. We're all suffering from the loss, but also from the separation. And so I want you to know that, as much as you are in pain and wish you were there, every member of your family and your friends also wish that you were there, because it lessens their grief as well as yours. So it's very reciprocal. So as we are out here navigating through it, all of us are saying, man, I wish Ron and Rudy were here. Man, I wish they were here. This is so hard without them. So first of all, don't feel like nobody notices that you're not there. Don't feel like everybody is angry and mad that you're not there. We wish you were there. We long for the comfort of grieving together with you.
And that's something that really encouraged me while I was incarcerated, because I didn't have nobody to go to. I didn't tell anybody. I didn't talk about it. Because why? In my mind, it's nobody's business to know what's happening with my family, because that's the part that I keep sacred, and I didn't invite everybody into that world outside of prison, right? And so having to process this experience all by myself, not going to the chapel, not going to the chaplain or talking to anybody about it, I would have to write letters to Cathy or in a phone call, and it's a 15-minute call, but how much healing can take place in 15 minutes? Because all we were talking about, are you okay? I'm okay. You know what? I will get through this. But there's no manual on how to understand this type of grief when you're not there with them to walk this walk out together.
So when we come back, so stay tuned. We're going to take a short break, but when we come back, we're going to talk more about how to navigate through the loss of a loved one while you're away. We'll be right back.
Finding your purpose should not be rocket science. Why is it in life when we get excited about something, when something comes our way and we know that this is our purpose, we know this is the reason why we were put here on earth, we allow life and the circumstances thereof to snatch our joy, to steal our dreams? Why is it that we allow those things to just suffocate our growth?
Because we make it so complicated. You need a program that shows you the process, that lays it out in front of you so that you know exactly when you're on track to unleash your fullest potential.
Because the word is, if you're faithful in the little things, you will be faithful in the big things.
In this program, we're going to teach you the process to actually reach your dreams. Some of you don't even know what your dreams are, so we're going to help you unlock that and unleash that. And then we're going to give you the process to step through all of the challenges, overcome every single obstacle in order to reach and achieve those dreams.
Part of the process of you becoming a new person for you is understanding what it means to be a Tyro, right? You're going to start reciting a pledge that is going to become your new mantra for your life, called the Tyro Pledge. And I promise you, this would change the way you think about you.
We're going to teach you the difference between a value statement and an observation. We're going to give you the formula on how to be successful in investing your time and energy. We're going to walk you through the process of developing a mission statement.
This is not going to be easy. This is not a cakewalk. But if you're ready to live up to your greatest potential, to take on every challenge that's in front of you and conquer them, then you're ready to be a Tyro.
You must know you are not on this path alone. As you go through this course, you're going to be going through this course with people all across the world. There are Tyros worldwide that are waiting to welcome you into this community, to become a person worth following and join the network that is transforming their lives and their communities.
The greatest honor of completing Tyro is to earn the Tyro pen. Many people from across the world, from all walks of life, have earned the Tyro pen by completing the 12 workshops that are in this program. But just because you signed up, and maybe you showed up for one or two of them, doesn't give you the right to earn the Tyro pin. You must complete this entire program to be pinned a Tyro.
This pinning is an outward symbol of something that's happened on the inside. Because throughout the Tyro process, you are going to be awakened to your purpose and your dreams. Your heartbeat begins to resurrect and beat again for the passion of being a leader in your home, your community, and your workplace.
If your dreams don't scare you, then you are not dreaming big enough. Sign up for this program if you're ready to be pushed to your greatest potential. Sign up for this program if you're ready to live the next level of life. You have what it takes. Everything that you need is right inside you. We're here to help you pull it out, your greatest potential. Quit running from yourself. Become the man or the woman that you were called to be here today, right now. Welcome back to Tyro TV. Today we're talking about a hard subject for Cathy and I, but it's important that we talk about it. It's important that we address it because this is something everybody in life, whether you're incarcerated or not incarcerated, faces. The loss of a loved one. And in this particular case, the loss of a loved one while incarcerated. I know for me, when Gloria passed away, that I was detached from the situation. I had to really be intentional about what was taking place with the family. I couldn't put my head in the sand and say, well, I'm in here, they got to deal with that. It has nothing to do with me.
Right. Because you were living a completely separate life. You had built this routine inside the prison, which is good and healthy to help you navigate through that separation. But then, so when this loss happened, I do remember it was like you were very stoic, you were very strong for everybody. He was writing letters, but I don't think, well, I know now that he wasn't. He says, wow, this is awful and it's devastating. But I don't think the whole impact hit him until he came home. And I remember you had been home, oh goodness, maybe a month. And then we went
to the funeral, or not the funeral, we went to the gravesite to see where they buried Gloria. And that's when it hit me. That's when the reality of what I did not experience because I wasn't there, that it not only hit me that I was numb to it, but I wasn't really part of it. Now, the family did their best to make me part of the experience, and I did my best to help my brother navigate through his experience, but I wasn't there for him either. Right. And then the guilt, right, of not being able to be that anchor, physically present with the family as they went through this horrific loss, because Gloria was a strong part of the family, right? And you got family members that are strong in the family that can help lead the charge of the family, and you got other family members that are maybe on the sidelines and they're still trying to find their way, and that's okay. But Gloria was one of those pillars that brought light to the family, brought joy to the family, and had us laughing all the time. And for me to just try to be a cheerleader as best I can for the family in there. And you're right, Cathy, I was stoic. I had to put on this mask that blocked all the pain and suffering that comes from losing a loved one.
And I think the reality of really dealing with it. And so I will never forget that day as we stood there and like almost like the shock that I saw on your face of, oh my gosh, this is so real. And then just standing there together, holding hands and just like weeping for this loss, and not just the loss of the loved one, but the loss of the experience of grieving together. And it is so real.
Well, and also the loss of time.
Yeah.
Right? What could have happened? Had I been home and had my brother been home, had we not been lames and whatever, and been focused as a healthy family, and this probably still would have took place, but it would have been a whole different experience. It would have been an experience that we all embraced together and walked through it, because the death of a loved one is not, yes, as grieving as it is, but it's also supposed to be celebration.
Right, of a life well lived and the joy and the memories.
And I don't think we had that.
Yeah, right. I don't think that we got to experience that together. So as you navigate through loss and you hear of the loss of a loved one, please, allow yourself to feel that loss. Allow yourself to be as involved as you can be in navigating through that loss with your family. But the truth is, you also have to accept the reality that you will not really experience the fullness of that loss until you're on the other side of the gates. And that is just one of the consequences of being in prison. And you know what? It's okay.
Yeah, it's okay.
Okay.
It's okay to not experience that there. Doing time in prison. You can't.
You can only experience part of it.
Yep.
And you really won't experience the fullness of that until you get on the other side. And it's okay.
And when we talk about it's okay, you got to come to grips with that, because you'll make bad choices while in prison if you're not navigating. And if you don't have anybody to talk to, that was one of the mistakes I did. I didn't share that experience with anybody in there. And I think I was probably a little bit depressed, but didn't know it, right? Because I'm wearing this mask. I'm not being real.
Pretend. It's okay. It's okay. I'm okay.
But I mean, I was so blessed and fortunate. I had Cathy to talk to on the phone, in the visits and letters. So if you don't have somebody like that, we want to encourage you to make sure that you find a support group while incarcerated. You got somebody to talk to, and we're going to talk more about that later in the next segment. But
well, I really think that And we're just going to be real, because if we're not real, we're not helping you navigate through it. It is real. As we navigated through this and trying to each of us wrap our own minds around this loss and wrap our minds around the fact that Ron and Rudy were not able to be present through this, that we were so focused on us getting through that, I really think that we didn't pour into Rudy the way that we should have.
Yeah, that's something.
And so watching Rudy really stumble and crawl and fight his way to find his feet and to be able to stand up and walk again as he went through this tremendous loss of losing his wife while he was incarcerated.
And so, we have to stop here, but when we come back, I want to touch a little bit about how to pour into somebody when they're experiencing this loss, even from behind prison walls. So stay tuned, and we'll be right back.
I'm your coach, Tremaine Hall. We're looking forward to getting you to the next level in where you want to be in fitness. Our whole method is to make you mentally tough and also physically strong. We're going to start with dynamic warm-up, lower core, upper body, and also full body blast. Get ready to take your fitness to the next level. Tyro Fit and Stenos.
Welcome back to Tyro TV. Today we're talking about when you lose a loved one while incarcerated and the realities of that.
This is such a serious topic, and I know it's serious, and I know it's hard to hear because it's hard to look at. It's hard for us. There's a lot of emotional triggers for us personally as we talk about and think about that chapter of our lives where we were navigating through loss and losing people that we really cared about and were an integral part of our family while Ron was incarcerated. It was devastating, but we had to pick up the pieces. We had to keep moving, and so we need to talk about it.
How do you stop the cycles of self-destruction? Because this is an easy door that you could walk through, and you can become so destructive that you not only destroy everything that you built while incarcerated, all the planning you've set up. In one moment's time, when you lose a loved one, you can throw it all away, because you have to go through the process of healing. You have to walk through it from denial to anger to grief and all the way up to the cycles of self-improvement. And that's what we want to talk about now.
It's so easy to go through this self-protection of this emotional detachment. And in order to have a coping mechanism to say, you know what, I've got to, chin up, face forward, square my shoulders, and keep going. So I'm going to just emotionally detach from this experience. I'm going to keep doing what I do, and I'm going to just avoid it. I'm going to be in denial that it even affects me, and I'm going to keep moving forward. And, some of that is self-survival. And initially, you need to have some self-survival skills to be able to face it and recover. But that's just for a short season. You've got to be able to recognize the impact of this death and this loss in your life and begin to allow yourself to become reattached and deal with the pain.
Because, you put enough pressure on a pipe, what happens? It will burst. And if you stay in denial, you're constantly, even in prison,
stuffing it.
You're stuffing it down, because in prison, you can't let nobody see you're hurting, you're in pain, that you're weak, right? Because that's not what you want people to see in you in prison. But the truth is, everybody in prison is experiencing what you're experiencing. Everybody has the mind battle of, what if I lose a loved one? There isn't a man or a woman in prison who doesn't have that thought. And that's something that's not talked about. Why? Because nobody wants to know you're weak. Nobody wants to know that this is a possibility. And I don't want you to know that I'm hurting inside. So therefore, I will put on this false bravado. I will walk around with my head held high, and you'll never know that inside I'm bleeding, I'm hurting.
I think personally, one of the worst things that happens is the way that our system across the United States treats death when someone's incarcerated. And so, the whole, well, maybe you'll get to go, maybe you won't get to go. And if you do get to go, you're going to be cuffed. You don't get to be around everybody. You go in a private, you get to go to the viewing privately, just you with the guards around, where you're still in handcuffs, and say your goodbyes. And we're dehumanizing grief. We're perpetuating this cycle of self-destruction. Okay, that's it. You don't get to grieve with your loved ones. You don't get to have that support to really help you to mentally accept the loss and to be able to emotionally connect to other people's experience so that you can overcome. So you have a huge challenge and a huge barrier in front of you, but that doesn't mean you can't overcome it. You must face everything and recover.
And as you go through this cycles of self-improvement, right? You want to get there. You got to be real with yourself. What phase are you in and during this process? You know, the first one you might go through is denial, right? You can say, this ain't happening.
I think first shock.
Yeah, okay, first shock. Thank you, Cass. You know, it's shock, right? When you're like, oh my gosh, I can't believe this is happening. And maybe you walk in the yard and you're like, the deers in the headlight, is that what it's called? The deer in the headlight experience. When somebody calls you, you get a phone call, you go to the chapel, and they tell you what took place. How do you deal with that? And the chaplain, of course, he's going to tell you, I'm here for you if you need to talk to somebody, which is awesome. But how often do we take advantage of that? Probably not very often at all. We'll go back and we'll start to process it. And then the first thing we do is we got to put our mask on. We don't want nobody to know, right? So you go into denial. And then you go back to your normal routine, act like nothing happened.
Now, this is where it's very important and extraordinarily important that you begin to do journaling, because you've got to get it out. And when we say journaling, what we're asking you to do is when you lose somebody, and maybe you've lost someone years ago, but you've never really accepted it, you've continued on in your incarceration and pretended like it's not affecting you. Every person that you've lost, begin to journal. Journal, what was your relationship like? What were some wonderful memories that you had? Even some struggles. What were some conflicts you had and challenges you had in that relationship? Because as you begin to remember those things, it becomes more and more real. And you allow yourself to navigate through each one of these parts of grief. We're going from that shock to the denial, to the anger, to the actually allowing ourselves to grieve, and then moving to a place of acceptance and healing. Well, you must go through those.
And before you get there, you got to go through the grief, right? And when Cathy said journaling, that means all these phases. You know, when you're angry, talk about that. Remember that. You know, why are you so angry? But if you don't get it out, it'll stay in and you'll constantly put something on top of it and stuff it. And then back to if you put enough pressure on a pipe, why do people get angry? Why does road rage exist? Is because why people don't deal with the pain and suffering that they're experiencing.
They let regret cause them to hold it in and pretend like, because they don't want to face it, they don't want to deal with the fact they weren't there, and then it causes them to stumble for the rest of their lives. When we come back, we're going to give you some final tips and tools, so stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Welcome back to Tyro TV. Today we're talking about when you lose a loved one while incarcerated. You know, before we close out, I want to just share one thing, and this is really encouraging you. You know, if there's anything I regret that when my brother's wife passed away, it wasn't intentional. It was because I didn't know how. I didn't know that was my role. That was my job. This was my opportunity to pour into him, to help him navigate through the loss. Because this was his wife. This was his best friend. This was his partner. This was everything to him in life. But because I was detached, I did not pour into my brother while he was navigating through the process of shock, denial, anger, grief, and all those things. And I regret that. I look at that right now and I say, wow, you know, and so is it too late? You know what? It's not too late. It's not too late for me to do that. Even today, when we're done here, I'm going to call my brother up and I'm going to say, hey, how are you? Hey, let's go do something. Because why? I need to do that. I need to do that. So I want to encourage you that if you know somebody in your family who lost someone so close to them and you've been detached from it, and that's a whole nother conversation, you know, emotional detachment, take the opportunity. Call them, email them, whatever it takes to encourage them, to let them know you're thinking about them. Let them know, hey, how are you doing? How have you managed through this new chapter in your life?
And I'm going to take Ron's challenge a step further. If you know someone in your sphere of influence, someone that you walk the yard with, somebody that you sell with, someone that you see on a regular basis, and you know that they've lost a loved one, come alongside them, encourage them, allow them a safe space to share their memories, to share their pain, because we're all going to need that at some point in our life. As we look back on the loss of each and every loved one that we lost while Ron was incarcerated, it became self-survival survival for us. And we have a lot of regret that we didn't surround each other in a way that really helped us to grieve together and to bond as a family. It's a completely different experience when you've got someone to walk alongside you, to put their arm around you, to encourage you daily, face to face. So either seek that out if you're incarcerated and experiencing a loss, or be that. If it's not your loss, but you know someone inside that has this loss, take an opportunity to strengthen one another.
And if you're not part of a support group inside the institution that you're in, make one. Create one. Figure out how to do it. See what is allowable, what's not allowable, and see if you can just start with 2 or 3 people. And maybe it'll grow into something beautiful. But you know what? We're here for each other to encourage one another. You're in an environment where hope may not reign, but you are the hope. You can bring hope to each and every person that comes into your sphere of influence. Be that for somebody in their life, because that's what you want somebody to be in your life.
We want to take a moment and thank you for allowing us to be part of your journey. Thank you for joining us today on Tyro TV. And until next time, always remember that we are rooting for you.